Hey guys, welcome to the Knitting Expat Podcast. My name is Mina and I'll be your host today. I'm coming to you from where I'm living in London right now with my parents and my husband and our daughter and my brother. It's a fully packed house around here. But yeah, so thank you so much for joining me today. If you are new, thank you so much for checking me out. This is episode 119, and if you are a returning viewer, thank you so much for coming back and joining me again. I'm sorry it's been a bit longer than I intended. I had intended to record last week, but my daughter Layla had she got ill towards the middle of last week and she got a bit of an ear infection, so we were dealing with that lovely surprise most of last week. So there wasn't much time left for recording, and I just really desperately wanted to get a podcast done this week before we leave for Paris in a couple of days, which is really exciting. If you've watched before, you'll know that Perry and Layla surprised me with a trip to Paris for Mother's Day this year, and Mother's Day in the UK was a couple of weeks ago. So yeah, we're going to Paris over Easter weekend. In the UK it's a long weekend. We have Friday and Monday are days off, like public days off for Easter, and yeah, so we're taking that opportunity to head on over to Paris for a few days. We're really excited. Perry and I have not been back to Paris since before we moved to Dubai. We actually got engaged in Paris, so that's the last time we'd been, and now we get to go back almost 7 years later with our daughter, which is really exciting. And yeah, even though it's forecast to rain the entire weekend, we're both really looking forward to it. Sorry, the door just opened and I thought my brother was coming in, but nope, it just opened. Anyway, yeah, so I'm trying to think what else there was I wanted to say. I have a couple of new patterns that are out now. Actually, I'll talk to you about what I'm wearing because I always forget to mention what I'm wearing, and what I'm wearing today is actually one of my own designs. It's my first adult garment design, so I'm really proud of this one. This is my mix and match cardigan, and this is out of Into the World on the Dresden DK base, and it is in the mildly amusing colorway. It's really beautiful. And yeah, anyway, so that's what I'm currently wearing. And the two patterns that I recently released, the first one is the Changes shawl, which I actually did a separate video for it as well on the channel, so if you wanted to see it more up close and have me, you know, listen to me talking about it more, then you can always watch that. But I'm so happy with how this shawl turned out. I'm so excited that so many of you are jumping in on the cowl. We have a knit along running for this shawl and actually for this cardigan as well, so feel free to jump on in on those. And yeah, so I use Primrose Yarn Company for my yarn for this project. It's in the Adelaide base, and I believe Kelsey is still selling kits for this shawl, so I will post a link to her website in the show notes and on the Ravelry page, which okay, so I should probably have mentioned this. We have a Ravelry group for the podcast, Knitting Expat Podcast, in the podcast tabs on Ravelry, and yeah, so for each episode I post an episode thread in the group, so you can pop on in there, find links to other things, and also if you want to comment on the episode or ask a question or anything, that's a great place to do it. You can also leave a comment on YouTube, and which I find more and more people seem to be preferring to use YouTube than episode threads on Ravelry, so I'm kind of wondering what's the point of doing those. Do people still want me to do those? Anyway, I'll put a link to Primrose Yarn Company's website in the episode thread and in the show notes, which can be found at knittingexpat.wordpress.com. And you can find me online as Knitting Expat on Instagram and Mina Phillip on Ravelry. Knitting Expat's been taken and no one's using it, which is really annoying. But anyway, so that's this. And yeah, I'm so excited about this shawl. I've been using it non-stop since when the weather's been cold enough for it. Sometimes when I'm just popping out really quickly with Layla, I just grab a cowl just because it's quicker, but I do absolutely love wrapping up in this shawl, so yay. I'm not going to leave it on now because this room is actually quite warm. I'm right at the top of the house in the convertic attic loft space, so it's pretty warm up here. And I've got some fun tassels on mine. It's actually the evening. Perry's putting Layla down for bed right now. It's just gone 6:30, but because the clocks have gone back or forward, I can't remember which, one or the other, it's changed. Because the clocks have changed, we have more light in the evenings now, which is great because it means I can do these in the evenings and not try and squeeze them in during Layla's sometimes unsuccessful lunch naps. Anyway, the other pattern that's been released is is the Bonnie Bonnet pattern, which is what I ended up calling this design. So this is the Bonnie Bonnet, and this is the little baby sized one that Layla has been wearing for the last couple of months that you guys will have been seeing. And this version was knit out of 100 Ravens yarn. I've also knit a version out of Tannis Fibre Arts. Now, just to clarify, the Tannis Fibre Arts yarn that I used initially was a worsted weight, and this one, even though it says 100 Ravens yarn, it says worsted and DK on there on the ball band, which was a bit confusing. So I just assumed it was the worsted weight because the yardage was about right for a worsted weight. And but then when I input the information onto Ravelry for the pattern and I put in this yarn, it said DK, and I was like, oh, okay then. And it also explains that this one turned out ever so slightly smaller than the worsted weight one. So this is a more snug fit on Layla's head than the worsted weight one. So that's something to bear in mind. You can easily knit the pattern as written with worsted weight or DK, and the worsted weight will give you just a slightly larger version than the DK. The pattern also has notes on how to adapt it if you want it to be deeper, because you know the bonnet is worn like this, so this is where it goes, you know, the face comes out this side. So you know, if you want to make this bit deeper, all you have to do is just knit a few extra garter rows before you join in the round at the back. And all I've done is I've popped on, I've used a couple of buttons that I've temporarily attached with some scrap yarn, and then attach these little fuzzy pom-poms onto it. If you've seen photos and videos of Layla in the past where she's been wearing her red bunny jacket, you'll see that there's one of these little fluffy pom-poms on the top of the hood, and these two were actually attached to the buttons down the front, but they were so close to her face and she keeps playing with the buttons anyway. I didn't want her to like put these in her mouth, so I just took them off. They've just got a little elastic that goes around the button, and so I just pop buttons in and pop the elastic around them, so these will be removable, and once she outgrows this, I can take it off this and put it on the next size up for her. Although it'll be a while before she needs to wear this size. But I think once she starts walking around, having a slightly bigger bonnet hat type situation wouldn't be so ridiculous. It's just when she's in a stroller and her head is against the back. And I think once you've knit the pattern, you'll see how, you know, it's quite easy to modify if you're comfortable with things like that. So yeah, and I actually got both versions out of one skein of yarn. So this actually, the size, even though it's like an older child size, it does fit an adult. Like I could put it on my head. I'm not going to do it now because my hair's already messed up as it is and I don't want to make it any worse, but this does fit on my head. So it's kind of like an older child to adult, so as long as your child wants to wear it, they can wear it. Or someone suggested this would be really good under like a ski hat or ski helmet or something as a for something like that. So if you're an adult and looking for something like that, this could work pretty well for that as well. So this is the Bonnie Bonnet, and that is also available on Ravelry. And I will try and remember to link those two patterns specifically. Otherwise, there is a link to my Ravelry shop below the video and in the episode thread and on the show notes. Okay, so I'm going to jump right in now with some new finished objects. So I'll move that out of the way. First things first. This pair of socks. I knit these for my mum for Mother's Day. They weren't finished on Mother's Day, they were finished a little bit later, but only because I cast them on too close to Mother's Day and I knew I wasn't going to get them done in time. But it is out of Lolo Did It yarn, is on her Lolo's Favourite, which is an MCN base, in the Feigned colourway, which is lovely tonal yellow. I'd used some of this as heels and toes on a design sock, and I had a whole lot. I had 80 grams left over. This used less than 75 grams, so I had more than enough yarn to knit a full-size pair of socks out of 80 grams for my mum. And yeah, and as you can see, it's got this fun sort of cable texture running down the leg and the foot. And I wasn't planning on writing this pattern up, but enough people have said that they're interested in it as a design that I'm thinking about doing it. And yeah, so when I finally get around to that, I will let you know. But I'm thinking of calling these the Ripple socks. I haven't actually checked to see if that name's been taken or if a similar design already exists on Ravelry, so I do need to check into that. And if there is a design that's already really similar to this, then I probably won't do it. But anyway, that's what these are. These are socks for my mum. I haven't given them to her yet, even though they've been finished for ages, just because I've been waiting to take photos of them in case I do decide to do a pattern for it. So that's my first finished object. I used US size 1's 2.25mm needles. I can't remember which, it was either Chogoos or High Sharps. Those are basically my go-tos for sock knitting right now. And I knit magic loop either 2 at a time or concurrently, so 1 sock on each needle. Okay, so next up I have some mittens. So previously I've shown you this hat that I knit out of junk yarn DK, and this is in the Sophie colorway. And then I've now done the mittens, the matching mittens that go with it. And I'll pop these on to show you the texture and the pattern better. So these designs, actually the hat and the mittens, are both now in testing. I posted about needing test knitters yesterday on Instagram, and these are now both being test knit. So they've got to find the adult sizes. So the hat is sized baby, toddler, child, adult small, adult medium, adult large, and the mittens are sized toddler, child, adult small, medium and large, because I didn't think there was much point making baby mittens, at least nothing so intricate for babies. Anyway, so yeah, I really like how this is worked up, and yeah, and I added a little design feature. The adult ones have this little sort of twisted stitches on either side, little cable, 2-stitch cables either side, which are really fun to work and adds a little bit of added interest in. And the palm side is ribbed as well, so it just gives a little bit of more, it sort of follows the ribbing from the cuff into the palm and hand and stuff. So I just think that works quite nicely and gives a nice look to the palm side. It's a little bit of interest. It's not just plain stockinette, although of course you could always just do plain stockinette on the palm if you didn't want to do rib. And that's the back. And the ribbing matches the hat as well, so the ribbing isn't a standard 2x2 rib or anything like that. And I do a nice long-ish cuff. It could have gone longer, but this is a good length of cuff for me to kind of like have tucked under a sleeve to make sure there's no sort of gap. So yeah, so hopefully I've given my testers a 2-week turnaround time for these mittens and hat, the test knit period. So I mean, they're pretty quick knits, to be honest, and I mean, each mitten took me like a day's worth of knitting, and for me a day's worth of knitting is maybe at best 4 to 5 hours, at worst more like 3. So I mean, you know, assuming I have nothing else to do that day, I get 1 or 2 hours during Layla's nap during the day to knit, and then my evening, which is usually another 2 to 3 hours, again assuming I have nothing else to do. That's my maximum daily amount of knitting nowadays. Before it was a lot more. It was easily more than double that I could have, like, if I had nothing else to do. But anyway, so they're really quite quick. So I'm hoping to actually have these released by the end of April, so mid to end of April, because I feel like this is a really fun sort of spring project. It's a DK weight, so it's not super heavy. It's lace, so it's a bit more airy, and so it's perfect for that transitional sort of spring type weather where it's still cold some days, but you still might want a couple of layers on, but not so hot that, you know, a hat would be ridiculous. I mean, like today, for example, it's been raining and miserable and actually quite chilly, and you know, hat and mittens would not have been bad. I didn't really go out today. Actually, no, I went to the supermarket this morning, but that was about it. But yeah, I'm actually taking the hat and mittens to Paris to hopefully try and get some photos for the pattern, because I haven't taken pattern photos yet for it. So I'm hopefully to be able to get some photos of these in Paris. And so I guess I should tell you, the mittens were knit using 3.25mm needles and 3.75mm needles, so that's US 3 and US 5. Yeah, and I told you that the yarn was Junk Yarn DK in the Sophie colorway. So I'm trying to actually remember to check my notes to remember I tell you everything for everything that I'm showing you. I'm really bad at doing that. And the next finished object, again, I've previously shown you the hat that goes with it. So this is, at the moment I'm calling it the Clusters hat, and it's the same thing. I am terrible at naming my designs. Honestly, I have such a hard time with naming my designs. I'm great at coming up with designs. I am horrendous at naming them, unless something specifically has inspired the design which works as a name. I generally find it really difficult to name. So right now these are being referred to as the Spring Lace Mittens and Hat, because I cannot think of anything more creative. So if you have a really good name suggestion for, this is going to be the theme of this podcast episode, is if you have a good name suggestion, that's probably going to be the title as well, because I have a few other things to ask for name suggestions on. So if you have a good name suggestion for this design combo, please let me know. I would be more than willing to accept suggestions on names for this and several others that are coming up. So this is the first one. The next one, again, I'm currently referring to this as the clusters hat because I can't think of anything better to call it. I need help. I need help naming my designs because I'm so bad at it. So this was out of yarn by Knitting It Up, the lovely Annie, based out of Montreal. And if I remember correctly, the grey base is Chasing Pavements colourway. Then this one at the bottom here is Suki. Then I think it's Melodrama. Then I think it's Royals and Lost Queen. Lost Queen or Lost Lake? Lost Queen, I think it was. And all of this is on her Monkland base, which is a fingering weight, superwash merino nylon, 85% superwash merino, 15% nylon. And I knit it using fingering weight held double throughout. And then there's the matching cowl, which is knit using this exact same technique, holding fingering weight double, all the same colours, except the colour progression, you get 2 colour progressions essentially. So it's a matching hat and cowl set. Again, currently calling this the clusters cowl because I can't think of anything better. Please, suggestions if you have any better ideas on what to call this combination of these 2 patterns. I'm, again, more than happy to take suggestions on this one. Right, my next finished object is actually one I don't have to show you. Those were the vanilla socks I was knitting for my brother for his birthday. They were the green stripy self-striping yarn from Dubai Knits. It was in the foliage colorway. It's 100% superwash merino, and I used a contrasting yarn from Once Upon a Corgi in her Narnia colorway for the heels. I gifted those to my brother. He has worn them. I think he might even be wearing them right now because I can't find them in his sock drawer. And yeah, so he loves them, and he's been wearing them. And yeah, so I don't have them to show you, unfortunately. Then my last finished object that I have to show you is my latest design, which I'm absolutely in love with. I am so excited by this. So I showed you, I just started it when I last podcast, and now it's finished. And it's finished. And this was actually a super quick knit. Well, although in fairness, this is basically all I've knit on since the last time I podcast. I haven't really finished, other than the couple of things I've shown you. I've not finished a whole lot. I've not worked on a whole lot, especially in the last week or so. I've been very focused on getting this finished because I wanted to take it to Paris to, again, take pattern photos in Paris, because I thought what would be more perfect than that. Assuming the weather will cooperate for long enough for me to be able to do that, that is the plan. If it's super miserable and I can't, then I won't, I guess. But I'm gonna try, and I wanted it done in time just in case I could. So this, I'm going to try and roll back a little bit to show you the full thing. So it's a boxy style pullover and with drop sleeves. The sleeves are just in stockinette, and it's a little bit, the stitches are a little bit funny because I haven't blocked the sleeves yet, and I still have all my ends to weave in, which I'll be doing after I finish recording. But I did block the body. Actually, once I finished the body, I went ahead and added the neckband, and then I blocked it overnight because I wanted to make sure. I tried it on actually after I finished the body, and it looked a lot more snug than I intended it to be. It's supposed to have around 4 to 6 inches of positive ease, so not super boxy, where you have like 10 inches hanging off each side, but boxy enough that it's loose fitting and comfortable, and it's not too figure hugging or anything like that. It's comfortable to layer on with things. So I wanted to make sure that that was gonna work out, and I wasn't sure based on how it looked pre-blocking, and as soon as I blocked it, it was fine. I actually had to sort of like pick it up and reshape it again because it was going to be too wide the first time round. It's actually quite forgiving in terms of being moved around and shaped, but it's because of the stitch pattern that I used across the front. As you might be able to see here, there's some twisted ribbing here, and because of the twisted ribbing, the fabric had really sort of like smushed it in quite a lot, because that's what ribbing does. It constricts a bit more. So once it was blocked out, then it sort of relaxed the stitches, and it was behaving correctly, and this is what it looks like up front. One of the reasons I love this is it's absolutely incorporating 3 of my favorite techniques. It's got lace, which when I first started knitting, I knit a lot of lace shawls and stuff, so that's when my some of my earliest designs have some like lace patterns in them. And I absolutely love cables and like the textures they provide, so there's a couple of really simple cables. And then twisted stitches, because I think they're really fun. I think twisted stitches are really fun and give a really they're aesthetically very pleasing to look at. That's what I was thinking of. So again, right now, this is being referred to as my twisted lace and cables pullover. I tell you, I am horrendous at naming my designs. So again, I will ask again, do you have a good name suggestion for this one? I would be more than happy to take on suggestions. And I should show you, the back actually doesn't have any design on it at all. I mean, you could easily do the lace pattern on the back as well if you really wanted to. I just wanted to keep the back plain because you are doing patterning. You know, you do have to pay attention on every row. Even the rest rows, when you're not actively doing eyelets or knit two togethers or anything like that, you are still having to pay attention to what you're doing because you know, you have to knit the knits and purl the pearls and make sure you knit through the back loop on the right stitches and stuff like that. So it does require some level of attention. So I wanted the back of the sweater to be your relaxing part of the knit, where you're not having to focus 100% the whole time you're knitting. You focus for one side and then you can relax on the other side. That was the purpose of it. I did design this bottom up, so there was that learning curve, and again, it's turned out to be a little bit longer than I originally intended, which for me is fine. I absolutely love a longer sort of garment, but then I have included notes in the pattern if you want to like crop it, I guess, or make it shorter. The difficulty with that is you would have to take out a whole pattern repeat, and the pattern repeats are quite long, so one whole pattern repeat is about 4.5 to 5 inches of length, which there again, depending on how tall you are and how long you like your sweaters to be, this is about, from the underarms, this is about 20 inches long. So if you only want it to be about 15 inches, then that would be perfect. And then of course there's the ribbing at the bottom, which flows perfectly into the pattern, which I absolutely love. And so you could also play around with the ribbing length as well to adjust the length a little bit. So if you cut out a full pattern repeat but you didn't want it to be short by like 5 inches, you could add an extra 1 or 2 inches of ribbing at the beginning and sort of play with the length that way. And yeah, and the sleeves, like I said, just plain drop shoulder sleeves that I need to block the sleeves now, because like I've blocked the body, just need to do the sleeves. And I do need to I'm going to make some adjustments in the pattern on the sleeve as well, just because it's fine, it fits perfectly, but it's just a little bit more snug than I'd originally intended it, but not by much. And like I said, for me it's still wearable, but it wasn't exactly what I had in mind. But I'm not going to rip back now and re-knit it, just because I don't have enough time before we go to Paris and I really want to take it for photos. And you know what, actually after I block it, it might be fine. It might just be because it's pre-blocked and it's not you know, at its post-block gauge. Anyway, I feel like that was a lot of talking. I should probably tell you what the yarn I used was. So the yarn I used was by Lavender Mountain Yarns, and it's on her Superwash Merino Cashmere Nylon base, so her MCN, in the Morphin Right Along colourway, 435 yards and 100 grams. And yeah, and this is what I have left. I had 4 skeins, and I haven't actually weighed my leftovers to see what I have left, but this is what I have left. 2 partial skeins. And yeah, now that it's done, I'll show you my swatch as well. This is my original swatch where I was testing out the stitch pattern. And again, because of one of the reasons I did it bottom up was because of the direction of the design, the stitch pattern. So bottom up, this is the way it looks, and you know, the arrows with the lace and everything are pointing up, which is the way I wanted it. And then, you know what, this way around would have been fine as well, but it didn't quite look the way I wanted it to. So this is why I went this way up. It might not be easy to tell on the screen, but when I was looking at it in person, I was sort of umming and ahhing about it a lot. And I used 3.75mm needles, US 5s, throughout. Is it 3.75? No, 3.5, sorry, 3.5, so US 4s was basically the size needle I used throughout. The only thing I probably should have done was go down a needle size on the sleeve cuffs. But the rest of the sweater, it doesn't matter so much because it's not figure hugging, you don't really need to have it tighter ribbing on the bottom. But anyway, so that's that. This took me, I think I started this on the 6th of March and I finished it today, which is the 28th, so it took me 22 days. I'm quite happy with that, pretty good. I'm pretty chuffed that I can still get a sweater done in a month or less than a month. I used to be able to do that, that was my thing. I never really had a sweater on the needles for more than a month. Pre-baby. Post-baby, it's taking me a little bit longer with garments, which is fine. But like I said, because I wasn't knitting on much else, the last week or so, I was very focused on getting this finished, and that's what I did. So my plan for this evening is to finish weaving the ends on this and getting it blocked. So again, please help me out with a name on this one as well. So that's my last finished object to share with you guys, and I have just realised that I left my one and only work in progress downstairs. So I'm not gonna get up now to go get it, but it's just a pair of vanilla socks out of some opal yarn. So I will show that to you guys next time, and I will share it on Instagram, I guess, as well. So if you want to check it out, you can see that there at some point. And that's it right now. That's all I have on my needles. Like I said, I was very focused on getting that sweater finished, so as other things got finished up, I didn't cast on anything new because I was so focused on that. Now I have loads of free needles, so I think I'm probably going to cast on a couple of things before heading off to Paris. I want to cast on a couple more hats for the New York hat collection that I want to do, and I've got the socks that are on the needles now, and I might take just some spare yarn for another pair of socks just in case. I really don't know how much knitting time I'm going to have when we're away, but I feel like a couple of hats and pair of socks probably pretty easy on the go knitting type of projects. So in lieu of having a work in progress to show you, I have another design to show you. So this cardigan is a little cabled baby cardigan, or children's cardigan I guess, that I knit for Layla last year in November, I think it was. I finally got the pattern written up earlier this year, and it's finally been test knit. The test knit is finished, so this will be coming out probably by the end of next week, just because I don't have time to do it before we go away to Paris, but also because I don't have a name for it. So for the last time today, if you have a name suggestion, I would love to hear it. So it's a lovely cabled cardigan, and so it's a big cable on the back and two smaller cables running down the front. It's got a shawl collar, DK weight, really fun, just really fun kids cardigan. This is actually in the 2 to 4 year size, it turned out to be. Layla has worn it, and I've taken a couple of pattern photos of her wearing it, although she was incredibly miserable, and I later found out she had an ear infection. So they're not the best, and I might try and retake them later in the future at some point. I just don't have time to do it now. But it's definitely big on her at the moment, which is perfect because I really intended this to be for something for next season, or next sort of autumn winter. This might actually end up being her Rhinebeck sweater if we go back to Rhinebeck next year, and if she comes with me, this might end up being her Rhinebeck sweater, just because it's already done. And it's very it kind of feels quite autumnal to me. It's actually the Nasty Unicorn colorway by Primrose Yarn Company on her Jasper DK base. I absolutely love this colorway. Really fun. So yeah, that's it in terms of knitting. So let's get on with acquisitions, and yeah, I just had a couple of things I wanted to show you guys. Oh, darn it, do I not have them? Oh, there it is. Okay, so the first thing I wanted to show you, sorry about that, was a couple of weeks ago on Mother's Day, my brother and I, we took my mum out for lunch. We went to Shoreditch. So there's a really nice little market around Shoreditch at the weekends and stuff, and it's just like a nice place to hang out. It's in East London, and well, it's more east than we are anyway. Yeah, so we went and hung out, and then they had a little we went to one of the markets. There's several markets throughout Shoreditch, but we stopped at one of the markets, and they had lots of really nice handmade things. So it was anything from like t-shirts that were screen printed to like people had made wallets out of different things. It was just really interesting and really fun to look around, and I picked up a few things for Perry, and my mum picked up a couple of like really fun t-shirts for Layla, and I picked up a couple of prints for her from this store, and the designer, I guess, is called Karen Ackerson. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly, but this is her card. And I just wanted to share this because we're all interested in, so we all love supporting small businesses, or at least I assume we all do, and you know, within the fibre community. And I thought, you know, a lot of people enjoy these sorts of things, so maybe you'd be interested as well. So I thought I would share, since it's not directly yarn related, but I thought I would share the information, so that's all there for you guys. And I'll try and remember to post the link to her website in the show notes as well. But I picked up these two prints for Layla's room. Eventually, once we figure out where we're living long term, I will get these framed for her room. So the first one is really quite cute, little rainbow. It says every day a brand new adventure. And the other one is these little animals with just some, you know, words of wisdom. Be smart, be kind, be loyal, be brave, be curious, and be friendly. So I thought these are just really nice and just nice prints to have for a kid's room. There were some other really beautiful ones that I really liked as well. Perry was in Ireland and he was in Dublin for a couple of days for a work thing a couple of weeks ago now. And he came back with this for Layla, this little Lammy, we've called her, or him, I don't know. And it's from the Aran Woolen Mills, hand knit. It was hand knit for the Aran Woolen Mills from 100% merino wool. So I thought that was quite cute. He picked that up for Layla as a gift. Yeah, it's just really adorable. Little Lammy. He actually saw it the first time he went to Dublin for work, and he said he was going to get it, but then he decided not to because I'd probably be like, oh, but I could have knit that. And I'm like, well, actually, you know what? Knit stuffies, knit toys, probably the best thing, because I will probably never knit something like this because I don't enjoy knitting stuffed animals. I did one bunny for Layla and I really don't want to do another one because I didn't enjoy the process. It's just not for me. I don't like knitting at that tight of a gauge. Just didn't suit me, but this is really cute and adorable. Look at his little head. So I just wanted to share that as well. I thought that was quite cute. And then the rest of the things I want to share with you is yarn. The first one I want to share with you really quickly because I did show this in the previous podcast, episode 118, but that was kind of just like a short chatty video and I don't know how many people necessarily watched that. So just in case you didn't see it, I was sent some lovely yarn by Nicole of Hugh Lyco. This was actually what I wasn't expecting. This was just some extra yarn that she sent because she's so amazing. I'm not going to take them out of packaging right now, but they're all on her opal sock base, which is a 50-50 silk and superwash merino. So you have Ohana, Wild at Heart, and Mahalo are the colorways. And this is what I was expecting, was a whole bunch of minis that she sent me to use for a sock design for part of the sock club for this year. So I actually only asked for 5 and she sent me 11 to choose from, and I'm having such a hard time deciding which ones to use. I might actually end up using more than 5 just because it's so fun. And these are all on her sock base, 80/20 merino spun sock. So yeah, so really, really fun, and cannot wait to get tuck into these. Sorry about the rustling. And the last thing I have to show you is from, and if you may recognize the logo, this is by from Goosey Fibres. So the lovely Caitlin from Goosey Fibres sent me some pretty yarn to play with as well. And let me just see, I can get this open up. There we go. So this is her card. There we go. Goosey Fibres. And so then we have 3 full skeins here. This is Love is a Battlefield on her 75 superwash merino, 20% nylon, 5% gold sparkle, 438 yards in 100 grams. So this is her Goosey Sparkle base, which is really quite cute. It's a cute name. So it's this beautiful sort of like tonal semi-solid pink with speckles of like darker pinks and greens and a little bit of like orangey brown in there as well. This is really pretty, and it's purple. It's a really sort of, this would be really pretty in either a pair of socks or it's like a little girl's dress or something maybe, or I'm trying to think what else, a shawl. It'd be good for all sorts of things. Then she sent me a skein on her MCN base. So it's 80% superwash merino, 10% cashmere, 10% nylon. This is Goosey Cushy base, and it's the City Spires colorway. Again, really lovely sort of tonal blue-green color, which I love. And finally, she sent me this skein. This is on her 75/25 superwash merino nylon, her sock blend. Goosey Sock is what it's called, and it's A Wrinkle in Time, which I believe is a Doctor Who reference. Correct me if I'm wrong. That's really fun as well. This would be great for like a really fun patterned or textured pair of socks, I think. Really show off the variegation in that. And then she sent me a set of mini skeins. So there's actually 2 of each mini in here. And so we have Horcrux, which I believe was the lime green, then Stardust and Dress Robes on the end here. So what I might do is split this into 2 and keep one and then use the other 3 for a giveaway or something. I'm not sure. I actually think like the green, the Horcrux, would pair really well with this skein as for like heels, toes and cuffs or something. And this is also on the Goosey sock base. And yeah, so thank you so much to Caitlin for those. And that's basically it for acquisitions. So moving on, we have knit along and giveaway news. First of all, I want to say I did post a prize winners video a couple of weeks back now, and only 2 of the prize winners, there were 4 prize winners, only 2 have gotten in touch with me. So one prize winner from the Wanderlust Sock Club from when I drew at the end of February hasn't been in touch yet, and the winner from the Knit Crate and Darn Good Yarn giveaway that I did for the 2 skeins of yarn from each, one from each, still haven't gotten in touch with me either. So if you entered into either of those giveaways, please go back and check that video. It's only like 3 or 4 minutes long. Please check to see if you are a winner, and if I don't hear back from you by the end of next week, then I will redraw those prize winners, because I'll be drawing more prizes next week for the Cozy Sock Club. And so I'll just redraw those winners as well if no one has been in touch with me by then, because it's been almost a month since I drew those prize winners. It's been at least 3 weeks, so I feel like that's more than enough time. So please make sure you go and check that out if you haven't already. Then we have 3 knit alongs running right now. Let me just move this yarn out of the way. We have 3 knit alongs running right now. We have the 2018 Sock Club. So the next pattern coming out for the 2018 Sock Club is on the 1st of April. I will be in Paris at the time, so please bear with me if it's not out like immediately right at the crack of dawn, but I will try and get it out as soon as possible in the morning when I get up. And that will be for the Cozy Sock Club. The next pattern coming out will be for the Cozy Sock Club, which is the more intermediate one. I think this one would look great with speckles, sort of tonal, semi-solids. I would probably stay away from like super variegated crazy yarns for this one. But yeah, anything super fun and tonal, speckle, sort of semi-solid would look great. And the yarn I used for this one was by Maker's Haven, and it was on her simple sock base in the Midnight Talks colorway. So it was a really lovely purple colorway. And so that'll be the next pattern that's coming out. And then we also have, so like I said, there are knit along threads for both the Cozy Sock Club and the Wanderlust Sock Club. So there's FA threads for both, and then there's 1 chatter thread, just to keep things simple, because loads of people are taking part in both. And then we have the mix and match cardi knit along, which is for this cardigan. There are 2 versions of the cardigan essentially. There's the textured version, which is the one that I'm wearing, and you can just do it in plain stockinette. So if it's your first garment, then I recommend doing the stockinette version just to get used to garment construction. And then you can try your hand at doing the textured one. If you're more confident with it, you could do texture either all over, or you could just do texture on the body and keep the sleeves in stockinette. I think that would be really fun play with the yarn as well. Keeps things interesting. And then finally we have the Changes shawl knit along as well, which kicked off on the day that the pattern was released. So the mix and match cardi is running until the 6th of May. And then the Changes shawl knit along is going to be running until the 20th of June. So I'm allowing people 3 months from the date the pattern was released, just because it is a really big shawl. Although I feel like it's a huge shawl, but it's done in sections, and each section on its own is not that big, but overall you get this big thing. And I mean, so for the section, there's 4 sections. So you've got section A, B, C and D, and then B, C and D are repeated on the other half of the shawl. So section A, C and D, you never have more than 100 stitches on your needles. Section B, you never have more than 200 stitches on your needles. And actually in each section your stitch count never changes. So you know, every row your stitch count always stays the same. So you're never, you know, wondering, you know, if your stitch count changes, then you know you've made a mistake essentially. So it keeps things so easy. It looks so complicated, but it's so easy to keep track of where you are. The stitch patterns and textures are so fun and really easy once you get the hang of them. I mean, they're not complicated in the first place. I knit that shawl in about a month with a baby, so whilst looking after a child. So it's really, I mean, it's maybe like 4 or 5 weeks to knit it, and it's you know, I'm now veering more towards designing things that are convenient to knit with children around. So there are definitely, I mean, I have to design things around my life. So that seems to be where I'm headed right now, which is great. Yeah, anyway, sorry, that got a bit weird at the end. Then I don't think there are any more questions in the questions and answers thread that need to be answered. Let me just have a quick check now, because I can't remember if there are any new ones. Oh, okay, no, there is a new question. So I'll answer this question now. It's by China Knits. And she says, "Hi Mina, I love watching your videos and always watch for the next one to come out. Thank you." She says, "I'm an American living in China. My husband makes a trip to the US every couple of years and we'll be going this summer for the first time in 3 years. I'm currently working on my master hand knitting certification, hope to do my tech editing certification later this year. I do a little bit of designing too. In China, circulars longer than 30 inches are unavailable, as are circulars over the size 9. I'm assuming she means US size 9, which is a 5.5mm. She says, even straight needles larger than size 11 are unavailable, and DPNs are 12 inches long. No hand-dyed yarns and very few bulky yarns are available. You can imagine what I packed to bring back. I'm looking into getting some blocking supplies." She says, "I have knit blockers and T-pins, as well as she's looking to get a yarn swift, ball winder, digital scale, and maybe a yarn meter." She says, since you've lived in other countries and know what it's like to fit things into suitcases, I'd be really interested in knowing which of these tools you consider absolute necessities. Thank you so much. Hoping, okay. So, in terms of what I think are knitting necessities, essentially, is what she's asking, in terms of just supplies other than yarn. Obviously, yarn and knitting needles are, I guess, probably the most essential things if you want to knit, but assuming you know what you want in that respect. In terms of blocking supplies, I probably wouldn't suggest purchasing blocking mats to bring back, because they tend to be quite bulky and take up a lot of space in your suitcase. You should see if you can try and get blocking mats either where you are, or I mean, you didn't have that on your list of things, but I'm assuming you might be looking at blocking mats. But other things that would be good instead of, I mean, you could probably get blocking mats where you are, or something that would work for blocking mats. But another thing I would suggest is if you do a lot of lace work, or work that requires to be, have lots of little points to be pinned out, then I would suggest maybe getting some blocking wires, and you can get some that are quite lightweight now, and they curl up quite small, so they're really easy to store and they don't take up a whole lot of space. And I definitely recommend getting some flexible blocking wires. So there are some blocking wires that you can get that are like a lot more stiff and they're just straight and you can't bend them, and I wouldn't necessarily recommend those, because again, they could be hard to fit into a suitcase. And I have some flexible blocking wires that I absolutely love, and I did use a lot when I was working on more lacy projects. Then a swift and ball winder are essential if you knit a lot, just because winding yarn by hand takes a lot of time. I did do it for a while when I didn't have a swift, but it's definitely handy if you do have one. And as for like a travel friendly swift, I definitely think an Amish style swift is the most travel friendly, because it comes apart really easily and it can be stored flat, whereas the umbrella swift can be quite bulky. So that would be my suggestion there. And Stanwood Needlecraft do a nice Amish swift, which is one that I have and I really like it. Same with ball winder. I have the Stanwood Needlecraft ball winder. I have the medium one. There's also a larger one that you can get. Again, it's a lot more heavy duty, and I think, again, once we know where we are more long term, I will probably invest in getting the large size one, because I think it's nice to have something a little bit more substantial. But my medium one right now works really well, and it's quite small, so it's easy to travel with. Digital scale, essential. Always have a digital scale. They're not expensive, they're quite small, easy to, very portable. Definitely get one, maybe get two, just have a backup. And a yarn meter. So a yarn meter, I don't actually have one, so I've never used one, but what I imagine is it's something that you attach to your ball winder, and it just measures the yardage as you're winding your yarn. At least I think that's what it is. Again, I don't think they're very big, so again, easy to transport, but I've never really felt the need to use one. But you know, if you want one, there's no reason why you shouldn't get one. Other than that, other things that you might, I don't know if you have easy access to things like stitch markers or that sort of thing that you're interested in, or project bags, things like that that you might not be able to get in China that you might want to think about getting when you're in the US. I hope that answers your question, and I'm not sure if you have any more specific questions, then by all means let me know. Okay, and last things to talk about are a bit of a week in review, I guess. So Layla's now 13 months old officially. She's very opinionated. Like, she takes my hand and leads me to the front door and is just like, yeah, let's go out. And it's just like very opinionated. If you try and walk her, like hold her hand and walk her in a different direction that she doesn't want to go in, she will plant her feet, she will scream, she will let you know that she does not want to go that way. She's very opinionated. She's figured out how to get downstairs. She loves being outdoors, which at the moment is pretty miserable. The weather, it's been raining all day, so I'm really looking forward to better weather just so I can get outdoors with her, because she just loves being outside so much, and I feel bad keeping her cooped up inside. I try and take her out as much as possible, but it's not always that easy when the weather's crap. Like I said, she had a bit of an ear infection, and I was saying on Instagram that it's a suspected ear infection just because she wasn't keeping still enough for the doctor to get a decent look at her ears, but from her symptoms and the way she was acting, he was pretty sure that it was an ear infection. Since the last time I checked in, she's taken her first steps. She's still not walking properly. She's every now and again will let go and take a couple of steps, but she's still very cautious and is not at all enthusiastic about walking on her own yet. She can do it, she can totally do it, and she just needs the confidence to let go and just do it. What else I was saying? So again, like I mentioned, we're going to Paris. I am definitely intending on going to La Biennale, at least for one visit, one day. I'm not, you know, we're going, it's meant to be a family trip, we're exploring the city together, and I don't want to make it all about yarn. But we will be stopping by and taking a look. Other things that have happened, one of my socks, my Mistletoe Kisses socks out of Turtle Pole Yarns. So my dad did laundry. He washed the woolen socks. He hung up the woolen socks because he knows they don't go to the dryer. Then he put on a load of white towels, and the white towels always get washed on like the hottest heat setting, which is 90 degrees centigrade, and I think that's like 194 Fahrenheit. Really hot. And what my dad didn't realize was that one of my socks, like one sock, had like got stuck to the side of the drum in the washing machine, and he didn't see it. Although when he was hanging up the socks and he saw that there was one of a pair missing, you'd have thought he'd have gone and checked the machine, but no, he wasn't paying attention, obviously. Put the load on, it came out. My sock was basically bleached, essentially. It looked like it had been bleached. And I don't think any bleach had gone into that wash. I think it was just the extreme heat that, you know, you don't expect your hand knit garments to go through. And you know what surprised me more than anything else was the sock was not felted. It did not felt at all. It was still the same size as the one that hadn't been through that really hot wash, and it still fit perfectly, so didn't kill it. So that's actually surprised me more than anything else. And the only reason I don't have to show you now is because I did actually end up wearing them mismatched like that, one still with the proper colour and one washed out. I posted a picture about it on Instagram if you want to see, but they're in the wash again now, so I don't have them to show you. Oh, the other thing that happened with Layla is last week she was sort of pushing around. She's got a little chair, and she just sort of pushes it around sometimes instead of using the walker, and she must have slipped, and she hit her lip on the edge of the chair, and it's just a little plastic chair, it's a little kid's chair. But she must have hit it just at the right angle, and she sort of busted her lip open a little bit. It wasn't anything major at all, but it did bleed, and she was freaking out, but it was fine. Like, the bleeding calmed down. She had a bit of a swollen lip for a couple of days, but it went down and the bruising's all gone now. But that was a little bit terrifying. It was her first proper injury that has happened because she fell over. It's a bit sad, but it was bound to happen, and I'm sure there'll be plenty more that will come from that. But But yeah. And then the last thing I wanted to mention, again, looking forward to warmer weather, one of our family friends, they wanted to get Layla a gift, and they were asking what they could get her, which actually I really appreciate, because, you know, she has lots of toys and she has plenty of clothes. So sometimes it's hard to figure out what to get for someone. And so I was thinking really hard about what Layla needed, or what would be useful and practical, and not just another toy to go in the toy box, or just another dress, or another something or other that she's going to wear once or twice before she outgrows it. And I was thinking about it, and I was like, what would be really useful? And I thought, well, she loves being outside, so what would be great? It would be a paddling pool. I remember we had paddling pools when we were kids and played in the garden in the summer and stuff. So that'd be great. She can have a paddling pool, and by the summer, hopefully, she'll be walking better, so she'll probably really enjoy it. And, you know, so I was just envisaging just this little round paddling pool, kind of like how, you know, the one that I had when I was a kid, and what most people would imagine as a paddling pool. And anyway, so our family, she ordered it and she had it delivered here, and when it arrived, I opened it up, I was like, whoa, this is way more than I was expecting. So it's a paddling pool castle, complete with turrets, slide, and inflatable slide, and it comes all equipped with an inflatable dragon, shield, and sword. It's amazing. I can't wait. I cannot wait for the summer to be able to get that blown up in the garden. It's huge as well. It's going to be like 3 meters squared or something crazy. There's a picture actually of the box with Layla next to it on our family Instagram page. It's the Philip Family Life. So you can check that out there if you want to. And yeah, I think that basically sums up this episode. If you do have name suggestions for any of the patterns that I showed you that need a name, by all means let me know. And yeah, I think that's about it really. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed what you see. And oh yeah, the other thing, and now I remember, I'm going to vlog when we go to Paris. So I'm going to vlog the weekend trip. I'm not sure how much of it I will vlog, but I'm going to vlog some of it anyway. And so there'll be a Paris vlog, I guess, coming at you guys after we get back. So got that to look forward to. So yeah, sorry there's no Layla in this episode, but she's asleep. And but you'll see her when we're in Paris, I guess. All right, take care. Thank you so much for joining me. Have a great knitting week. Hope you have an enjoyable Easter weekend, if it's a holiday for you guys, or if you celebrate. And yeah, I guess I will see you guys soon. Bye.